My name is Shamir McKenzie, and I am the CEO of the Sungate Foundation. And Sungate is an anti-trafficking organization whose mission is to provide access to education for survivors of human trafficking. We do understand that education is a key component in restoration for survivors, and we are the only anti-trafficking organization in the U.S. whose sole mission focuses on education. So I am a survivor of human trafficking. I was trafficked in the U.S. for a period of 18 months, and 18 months of severe torture, and that's torture in every sense of the word torture. When I first met my trafficker, I had no idea he was a trafficker because he didn't present himself as such. So traffickers don't come and say, hey, I'm the big bad trafficker, come with me, I'm going to abuse you and physically and psychologically. No, they're very smooth. They prey upon your weakness, and for me at that time, I was in need of $3,000 to return to school. And after sharing that with my trafficker, he said, I will help. And that help that I received, or the help that I thought I would receive, led me to be a victim of sex trafficking in the US.
That's terrible. But you've managed to turn that experience into something really positive. I mean, how has that been as a process? I mean, you've
well, restoration for survivors of slavery is an ongoing process. It takes a lot of counseling to address the traumatic experiences, to even understand the experience itself. Because when I first became free, I didn't understand that I was a slave. I didn't know that I was a slave. I didn't understand the term human trafficking. So that in itself was a learning experience for me to understand that, yes, I was enslaved. Yes, I am a victim of human trafficking. And what does that mean? And how do I take that and move forward with the rest of my life? I was criminalized even though I was a victim. So that's another layer of trying to understand how can the criminal justice system that is in place to protect me is now seeing me as a criminal instead of a victim because of the actions that I performed under the direction of my trafficker. I can definitely say that, you know, they have taken strides towards acknowledging that victims of human trafficking are in fact victims and not criminals, but that attempt is being made towards minors. The minute you are 18 years old, it's like people have this thing that, okay, when you wake up on your 18th birthday, just forget about everything else that happened. Now you have to take responsibility for your actions. And I feel like a human being is a human being, whether you are 18 years and younger or 18 years and older. The atrocities that you face, whether you are under 18 or over 18, it's still slavery. It is still abuse. So we cannot ignore the abuse, you know, when you become 18 and now you have to be held accountable and now you're seen as a criminal instead of a victim. I think everyone should be treated equally, and that's, you know, something that we have struggled with when we talk about slavery. Equality for all, justice for all. What does that really mean when we talk about equality and justice for all? Because here we have slavery that still exists, but in terms of equality and justice for all, that's not necessarily true. So my mentor is Kevin Bills, and Kevin basically found me. Before I knew about him, Kevin wrote about me in his book, The Slave Next Door. That's page 84, Barbie and the Gorilla Pimp. And so Kevin shared my story as a college student who was from a great background, family background, and here it was that I am trafficked. And so he shared my story to show that human trafficking victims, it's not a cookie cutter like approach in terms of this is what they look like, this is their background. He shared my story to show that anyone can be a victim of human trafficking. And so I met Kevin definitely on a plane, and it was surreal to me because his organization, Free the Slaves, invited me to participate in the Freedom Awards. And here I was on the plane, and I said to the lady I was with at the time, do you know my story's in a book? And she said, what book? And I said, The Slave Next Door. And she said, well, the author is sitting right in front of you. And that was a surreal moment that Kevin was sitting right in front of me. And when I met Kevin, I was still going through my healing process at the time. And when I met Kevin, he said, how about you sharing your story, and you can help others, you could use your experience to help others. And I looked at Kevin as if he was crazy. I was like, what are you smoking? No one wants to hear about what happened to me. No one wants to hear about this experience. As I said before, at that time, I was still battling with accepting the fact that or understanding the fact that I was in fact enslaved. So Kevin was like, okay, we were in LA at the time, and he said, when we get back to DC, come to my office and we'll talk. And when I went to Kevin's office to talk, again, I was wondering what he was smoking. You can go to universities and you can share your experience, and people will actually pay you to share their experience, and you can advise on policy, and you can help other survivors. And I'm like, survivors, But then he showed me the steps to take towards achieving those goals. He mentioned, just going on YouTube and watching other orators and take notes and take lessons from them, and then put Shamir into my presentation. And I listened to everything that Kevin told me to do. I listened to it, and I was shocked that within a year I was going to another country to share my experience, and within 2 years I was speaking at a TED Talk, and being requested by various organizations and universities and government agencies to share my experience. So it's like, oh, he really wasn't smoking anything. This is actually, in fact, true. And the thing that I really love about Kevin is, being a survivor of slavery, we have trust issues. And so when Kevin first, approached me about sharing my story, I'm like, right? But, his help showed that I can trust him. So even coming here today, when he reached out to me and he said, hey, there's this conference, I said, yes. Another person approached me about going to Hungary to present there, and I was like, I can't say no to Kevin Bales. Like, no. And he's been instrumental in my life ever since, when I have challenges in terms of some of the talks that I give. I can always reach out to Kevin and say, hey, how do I address this? And ask for advice. And now I have the Sungate Foundation. Kevin sits on my board. I recently graduated college, and it was Kevin who reached out to the university because they invited him to speak, and he used that opportunity to share my story and made connections there that got me a scholarship, where I can pick up the broken pieces and go after that dream of getting my education. So I owe a lot to Kevin, not just being here, but in other areas of my life that he has assisted, and he wants nothing in return. I mean, I remember having that first conversation. I said, so this is my speaker fee. How much, do you want out of this? He's like, nothing. I want nothing. He even appointed someone in his office to assist me, and they took the request and processed them for me, and then handed them down to me. And so that person wanted nothing either. Talk to me about having a bio and a speaker agreement and those little things that I'm just like, okay, like, what is this world that I'm stepping into? Until now, I'm where I am today, 4 years later. On a speaker circuit, being requested to speak by various departments. Like next year, I'm speaking to the Supreme Court of Illinois, their biannual conference for judges. I used my story to advise on policy. I mentor survivors, and I train law enforcement on how to identify and respond. And so, it's really empowering for me to be able to give back in this capacity, and see how it's not just about sharing the story, but it's more than my story. I can give back, and I can impact someone's life, and to me, that's what life is about. So I'm fulfilling my personal goals and mission in making a difference in this world. When we leave the world, what legacy are we leaving behind? And that's why it's important for me to be here at WISE, because WISE is a true replica of what it means to leave a legacy behind. They're carrying on the legacy of William Wilberforce, and we think slavery is something of the past, but through that legacy, we are able to still fight and address contemporary slavery. And that's what this conference is about, learning from the past to advise the present. Yes, we think slavery is this new phenomenon, and oh, it was abolished years ago, and we can move on from slavery, yet it still affects people. And you know, it's shocking that when I share about human trafficking and slavery, people are like, oh no, not here. That happens in a developing country, and our brains immediately go somewhere else. Or I'll say to someone, do you know that you participate in slavery? And they said, participate? Not me. No. And we don't understand how we participate in slavery by purchasing certain goods, you know, that are made by slave labor. Or I ask the number one question, when you hear the term bachelor party, what comes to mind? And when I ask that question, everyone says strip club. And that should tell us about something about society, how we are programmed into buying into this slavery and trafficking. Because when we hear bachelor party, I said bachelor party, wedding, bride, groom, but our brains immediately go to strippers, you know? And so there needs to be a shift in the mindset of our culture. You know, and so that's something personal where we need to look at ourselves and say, hey, what is my brain programmed into believing, or how am I buying into slavery? How am I a part of slavery? And not only how am I a part of it, what am I going to do so that I'm not a part of the problem, but I'm a part of the solution? And that's why I'm happy that I'm here today, because I'm able to be a part of the solution.